Hey everyone, it's Christopher Swan and welcome to this week's episode of Living Your Journey. I have the amazing opportunity to chat with the people that love what they do in life. They understand their passions. Maybe it's a career path or the social impact that they're making. It's kind of like they're following their North Star. Even though their story may change, they understand that they're on their journey every day. Today I talk with professional photographer Vanessa Stump. Vanessa captures portraits and lifestyle moments, but really specializes in food photography. Her work has been seen in publications such as the Clean Eats Cookbook, the MasterChef Cookbook, Good Magazine, Sunset, Apartment Therapy, and so many more. She's also worked with AAA, Pinkberry, Patina Restaurant Group, Marriott, BluePlate, and dozens of other corporate clients. Vanessa has a great skill of telling stories with her photography, and it's so clear that the clients love her work. In our conversation, Vanessa and I talk about a realization that photography was the new path she needed to take, which included going back to school and practically starting over. We get into the details of why photography matters to her, setting goals in work and life, advice in following your passion, how she stays creative and excited for her work, and even a few more topics. We clearly cover a lot here. Vanessa is a lot of fun, and I had such a great time talking with her. I love how she's all things creative, yet still keeps the business of her photography front and center. After the conversation, be sure to check out accidentalinformation.com to see pictures of the whale story Vanessa shares in the show. Okay, here's Vanessa. So for folks that are listening, I want to introduce you that we have such an amazing photographer on, and she has such a wonderful perspective. This is Vanessa Stump. She's an independent photographer. She's focused in food photography, but of course, I know your skills go way beyond that. You do so many other things, lifestyle, and just you could do corporate events. You can do anything, really. I'm going to kind of just dive right in a little bit and just kind of, I want to paint the world of kind of your photography and your creativity. So you've been on this amazing photography journey. And I think I knew you before food was like that just maybe the main focus, or maybe I just didn't realize it. I was asleep. But I would love to know about like your current photography world, like what kind of shoots and who you're working with, like what's your world look like today?
That is a good question. My world is always different, which is what I really like about photography. I was thinking about your questions that you sent to me and thinking of like I think food is kind of my favorite to focus on, but I do enjoy all of the aspects of photography that I do. So with food, I do two kinds of shoots. I either shoot in my studio and I'll have maybe 16 people here.
Wow.
With art directors, and we'll have chefs in the kitchen and food stylists, and then an ad agency might be here, and then I'll have assistants and a prop stylist and, a lot of different people. Or I shoot restaurants on location, and it will be in the middle of the day, and I will be there when no one is there, and it'll just be me and the chef. And that's like a whole other kind of a shoot, but I also enjoy that.
How does that happen? Like, why one versus the other? Is it just because of the type of client or the type of thing you're shooting?
Mostly that they're both food, but with the restaurants, they're more editorial jobs, and so the budgets are a lot smaller, and so that then there's not as much staff that comes along. And then for shoots that are here in the studio, then those are more advertising shoots or promotional shoots directly for a client, where they have bigger staff and a lot more moving pieces and people that make it happen.
Yeah, I could see that, especially working just like, coming from obviously corporate world, I can see how like more things, more people, bigger budget, all that kind of stuff blends together. So,
yes.
So obviously food photography is really big too, but I also know that you do these other spaces, and lifestyle and that sort of thing as well. So in your space, is it like 90% food? Is it other, like, or is it? I always think of photography, it's an art. And so creative and art people, they could just like kind of go where their passion is. So what does that look like for you as a photographer as well? Are you doing things beyond food?
Yes, I do. Is it okay to talk about school and
Oh
things?
my gosh, talk about
Yeah.
anything.
Okay. So I let me go back. So after like high school, even I went to college for the first time, and I studied interior design and graphic design at California University in Sacramento. And I always loved photography. And I took photography every semester. I took photography for summer school. Like I always took photography. But their program was more geared towards fine art, and I knew I needed a real job. So
A real job. I love that.
and I didn't know how it I didn't make that connection, I guess, of that you could do photography as a real job. And I've always loved magazines. I recently found a picture of myself as 1 year old, like reading a magazine, which
Really?
I love that I found that picture, and that I was visual and interested in visual things very early, and I still love magazines. I get so many subscriptions, probably I don't know, 20 or something, with food and travel and fashion and lifestyle and business and photo and home and gardening. And I actually asked my mailman once, do I get the most magazines of anybody here? And he said no, which was really surprising to
Oh,
me.
wow. Yeah, especially if you're getting 20.
I want to go meet that other person who gets as many as me.
It's like your new community, right? Are we magazine hoarders?
Yes, love magazines. So I've always been really visual. So then after I graduated college, I moved to San Francisco with some roommates, and it was great. And I had like a ton of different kinds of jobs. Like I worked in a fabric showroom. I did temp work. I worked at a photo studio. I worked for an interior designer. Like I just did a lot of different things. And then I kind of settled in working at an architecture firm, which was really great. And I enjoyed working there. I learned so many things. And then after the architecture firm, then I went and I worked for a big clothing company in their corporate design department, which was also great, but it was a big corporate job, and I worked in a cubicle,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
wasn't the best fit for me.
Yeah. I get that.
And then I kind of would look around, and I didn't want to be anybody, and I was really young, and you want to look up and like, ooh, I want to be that or work towards that, or it just, I didn't fit there, I guess. So at that time, I lived with a girl, and she, my roommate, and she was a school teacher, and she had always wanted to be a school teacher, and she had just started teaching and would come home and sing song like, I love my job, I love my kids, and I would just look at her like,
Why are you crazy? I want to be like that.
I wanted to love my job,
Yeah.
So I wanted a change, and try to get out of the cubicle and kind of figure out what it was that I wanted to do with my life. And at that time, it was my high school, my 10-year high school reunion, and everybody, was married and had jobs and all these things. And they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going back to college." And they're like, "Okay, crazy Vanessa,"
It's so not crazy though. That's the thing. Like, sure, why not?
And I had been in school so long the first time that I went to school that it was kind of like, really? Are you going to go back to school? But I'd always wanted to go to art center. Like it was like this really romantic place that, I had always dreamed of. But I thought, oh, I already went to school. I can't go to school again. And I had talked to some friends, and they were like, why not? Like, why not? Like, what's keeping you from doing it? Like, why don't you look into it? And so I kind of looked into it, and I took even more photo classes, and I put a portfolio together, and I was living in San Francisco, but I came to LA to visit the campus and was dazzled, because it's an incredible place.
Yeah.
And I applied and I got in. And so then it was kind of like, okay, are you going to do this? Like, are you going to move away from your friends and your family and your job and, be a student again and start over again?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I did. So it was great. And sorry, it was like a really, really good decision for me. It like changed my life path is what I always say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or changed my highway. Like I was on this highway over here and now I'm on a totally different highway.
Oh my gosh, I heard this phrase once. Okay, I think it's in a song. I quote the most random things. And I do it on the podcast, which I think is probably not so great. But I think it's from Kinky Boots, actually. Now I think about it, it's like
you can come up with it because see, I wouldn't remember like this.
Well, I remember this. It was like one of the songs says like, if you're on the wrong road, like turn back. I'm like, well, duh. Or I always think, take an exit. Come on, let's go somewhere.
Sure.
So I love that you just did that. And that's been years ago, right? Like,
yes.
So, do you flash back ever and think about like where you're at today and like what you're doing and how you enjoy it and look back of that you even like were considering not going or, like I vacillated about that or even worried? Is it interesting to look back at that now?
I'm so appreciative that I did it and that I like being older now. You're like, that was crazy. But, I'm so glad that I did it. And at the time that I did it and, I never regret any of it. And I had and have quite a hefty student loan from that, because I didn't work for 3 years and the program is very expensive. But even that, it is still so worth it to me to have a job that you enjoy or that you actually can say that you like.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of people can do that. And I feel very, very lucky that I can say that.
I would even think too that because it's a job, but a photographer, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a photographer. I fake it. And yeah, but I would think like that bleeds into everything you do. It's not like I'm stopping at 5. It's not quite like that, I would imagine. So it's we call it a job, but it's also like what you live and breathe and kind of do all the time in the way that you maybe see the world because, it's your perspective that you're shooting.
Right.
So to me, it seems like this is like a change of who you are. Like you're really being true to that kind of aspect of it.
I feel very lucky for that too. My neighbor where I live she's a painter and she was talking about travel expenses or something and her phrase that I love is she said, my antenna is always up because you never know where you're going to get ideas or what you're going to see and it's true. Like it's really interesting to be out into the world and have it affect your work or be a part of your character or who you are or what you're showing people.
I'm totally going to borrow that phrase from her.
I love it.
Totally. So you let her know. I'm like, I'm totally borrowing that.
Yes.
So when you went to school then, I'm just curious, like, are there classes on food photography or is that really just like a gamut of different types of like commercial photography?
What was great there is that we studied everything. Like we shot cars, we shot food, we shot products, we shot people, we did fashion, we like any kind of photography that you could do, we had a class in it and or a workshop or, so we at least have had experience with anything and everything. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of decide what you want to focus on. And I had a teacher when I was in school and she kind of when I was there, a lot of people were shooting fashion. And to me, that wasn't interesting. Like I didn't want to hang out with skinny young girls, all day long. That's not interesting to me. So one of the teachers suggested shooting food and that just like made sense to me. I like to cook. I like food. I used to work in a restaurant, when I was in school. I'm comfortable in a restaurant. I'm comfortable around food. And then I really liked it. And then I could make really pretty pictures of food and people would want to eat it. And then that makes it even better. Like that's like one of the best comments is like, oh, I want to eat that. Like that's perfect. Ding, I did it.
It's so interesting to me because like food photography for me in the last year has been like this new discovery of like understanding how that works and what it's about. And I've done a little bit more research and I think, you and I chatted on email about, I'm going to totally ruin his last name, but Matt, is it Armandiris?
Yeah, I can't say his last name.
Like I just, like I'm kind of obsessed with him. Like yes. His pictures are so interesting. He's traveling, he's crazy, and he was a little bit of my intro into like more of that. And obviously I've been following your stuff, and then I've started to look more, and I would just think, oh my gosh, there's so much that goes into these things to make it look the way it does and appealing And as you described earlier, like all these different people that could be around. So like, I just didn't even realize that it's such a skill and art that goes into that kind of photography.
Right. Yes. But you definitely need a good team. Like you need, because there are a lot of people who make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm curious now that it's with social and especially like I think Twitter and Instagram, like it seems like almost everybody's a food photographer now. Clearly not in the same degree whatsoever, but
Right.
people are taking pictures of their food all the time.
Right.
I'm just so curious from your perspective. Is that like a good thing, a bad thing? Is that inspiring? Or is that like they're muddying the waters? What does that look like?
I think it's good that people are interested in food, and it definitely brings more attention to it. But I think taking a picture, like a cool, awesome picture with your phone, and then creating a campaign for a client, with serious things that need to happen in that image is a totally different thing.
Yeah, totally. I can see that.
So yeah, because when you have something pretty in front of you, it's often easy to take a pretty photo. But when maybe something isn't as pretty and you have to make it look pretty and
That's
edible,
awesome.
then that's maybe a little bit something different.
Oh my gosh, I bet there's so many stories there. I'm not going to dive into them, but I was like,
That's when your problem-solving skills come in.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I think we all have that, whatever that is for us. Like, it's not going to make this look amazing. Great.
Yes, but there's a lot you can do with lighting and the angles and perspective.
Yeah.
Kinds of things. So.
Hey, there was one thing I wanted to understand too, and I didn't ask this, I want to interrupt you, but you were talking about going to school and this thing too. I read a little bit on your bio too that you had this, that your father gave you your first camera, and is that kind of where like your love for photography? I know visually you were like magazines and all these things, but how did that happen with your father and the first camera?
I think so. Yeah, I was young and I had a camera and I'm not very good at hanging out, and I don't know if it was my mom, like she, I always had to be productive or something, but when I would have my camera or it's kind of like your friend, like you can be somewhere because, oh, I'm here taking pictures or something. Like I could go to a party and a lot of times I'm working, but I'm fine and I'm comfortable because I have my friend, my camera there. Like you're not like kind of by yourself or something.
That's so interesting.
Is weird, but then on the good side too, it opens up like I've been crazy cool places because I was shooting or having a job and taking pictures somewhere, which I feel really lucky about too.
It's so true. I can see that, and I like that you were like, oh, maybe I needed to be, maybe it's about being productive when you were young. But I love this point about like the camera because it can open up. I heard somebody else talk about like it's, you're kind of forced to have to talk to people, even if that's not your thing, because, well, I need to go shoot them or I need to do something.
Or people are interested. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm taking pictures for this. Or like, oh, they'll take a picture of me. But that's kind of a funny thing too, that people, like strangers will come up and like, oh, take a picture of me. And you're like, oh, no, thank you.
Oh, that's so funny. I wonder if that's also because of the Humans of New York and things like that are going around and people are doing these, stranger shoots all the time.
Oh, that's true.
That's so interesting. I don't think I would have ever gone to anybody and say, hey, would you take a picture of me? That'd be really great. But maybe I'm going to try it. Thank you for the advice.
And if they say no, thank you, then, don't give them a hard time.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
They might have another agenda.
Right? So funny. Well, there's something else that I've been meaning to ask you too, because I know we've been chatting about these things and I feel like I'm all over the map, but I just think this blends into some stuff too because I love that you're so interested in like the visual piece of this, and there's the technology and elements that go into it and the techniques and the skills. But, I'm curious about like some of your, like what drives you or motivates you in these spaces as well. And where I'm leading to is I know that just a couple weeks ago that you went and saw Oprah live with the SuperSoul sessions.
Yes.
And so I have been really kind of dying to ask you about it because I watched a little bit. It's like she was shooting it live on Instagram as well, or Facebook. I'm sorry. And so I was like, oh, I know Vanessa's there. And I'm just kind of, curious about this visual thing that you love to do because it's like a craft and it obviously gets you in great experiences. But how does that connect with like things like you going to see Oprah and this SuperSoul sort of thing? Like, is there a connection for motivation and inspiration, or what is that for you?
For me, I'm very motivated by learning. I love learning, and I always feel like I have so much more to learn. So if I attend and I go to a lot of workshops, and then any kind of entrepreneurial things, I feel like I have a lot of growth that needs to happen into being a better leader, or to being, a better entrepreneur, or being a better business person. And then, there's always like the networking aspect of being out in the world and trying to meet people. And with the Oprah thing, it's like, it's nice to meet the more like-minded people, and I've always been an Oprah fan, and all my friends always make fun of me, but I feel like she's awesome. Like and then actually my food stylist did a shoot with her
Really?
recently. And so I actually have met somebody who has met Oprah.
That's so funny. And I love that you kind of just said like your friends make fun of you for it. I think there are like two sides of the fence for this. I'm so generalizing, but it's like the people that like her and the people that don't. And the people that like her really like her. Like it's a huge following. And I think she gets a bad rap because she is really mainstream in what she does because there's such a big following. But I actually think there's magic in that, even if you don't agree with the way that she does it or everything she says. But she's bringing such beauty and light to the world and helping people just like live and love that I think, how can you not love even the trajectory of where she's going?
Sure. Just being in the room, with that energy and there's so much positive energy in there, and everybody focused on that energy, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's, I don't know, when you surround yourself around these like really energetic or amazing people that are living with like love and light, like it can't help but rub off on you. That's how I look at it. So I'm like, I think it's great that what she's doing. Well, okay, so tell us then, like, is it like a 1 day, long day session of like, because I don't know exactly what's happening there other than like she's sharing some, inspirational things, but like, what was the experience like at one of those sessions?
Well, this particular one, I actually have seen her twice, so I'm very excited. But
so I didn't know you were a groupie. Okay,
serious groupie. She was filming the SuperSoul Sunday. I guess her program that she has, and then so I think maybe there were 8 speakers, or there was a number of different speakers that were there, and each one gave their talk, and then she would come and talk in between, and then it would just continue. And then they were filming the show during this day, which I thought was pretty smart on her side, because we had to buy a ticket to go see this thing, and then she was filming her show, so we kind of paid for her to film her show. But that just shows that she's a smart lady, and everyone was happy to pay, like they want to see Oprah.
It's so funny. She should have brought that up and this is your first lesson about being an entrepreneur.
You need money.
And get people to pay for it while you're filming.
And it came to my attention from the Marie Forleo, or the Marie TV show, which I love her. She has her Marie TV comes out on Tuesdays, and people will write in and ask her a question, and then she normally answers the question, as a video, which is interesting. But then, so she sent an email saying that she was going to be a part of this, and that's actually how I found out about it, was from the Marie TV, not actually from the Oprah connection. But and she was great. She did an awesome talk, and she's an amazing speaker. I really enjoy her as a person and a teacher also.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of her, just based on our conversation as well, and I could see that she really is in touch with so many elements. How do these, you talked about these elements, like being a better entrepreneur or a leader. How does this play into, is it just the business of your work, or does this also help you in like the passion of loving what you do with the photography?
I think when things run smoothly, it's better all the way around. It just makes things better. And then people want to work with you more. That's always my goal, is for things to go well and for them to want to come again or to hire me again. And I feel really, lucky. I keep saying that word, but I do feel really lucky, and I'm very appreciative that I have repeat clients. And, I turned one editorial shoot of doing a portrait of some owners of a restaurant into like shooting for them seasonally,
Wow.
and shooting food, not even doing portraits, but they just, I had a nice connection with them, and we did a nice portrait. And then the thing that I always think is so funny is people will call and say, "Oh, do you think you might be interested in doing blah, blah, blah?" And I'm on the other side of the phone, like jumping up and down, putting my hands up in the air saying, "Yeah, oh yes, yeah, I think that would be great." And I'm like,
I love that. That's so amazing. I mean,
but they always say, "Oh, do you think you'd be interested?" Like, would this be so? Yes.
like they're calling to ask you, like, I don't know, like, would you garden for me or something? It's like there's some random. No, of course I want to do that.
Yes. So and I have a friend of mine that has really, really good SEO, and he recommends quite a bit of work to me if it's not in his wheelhouse or if he's busy or something. And the same thing, like it'll be something small, and then 4 or 5 years later, they're still my client.
Wow.
Just because they, have had made good relation with them and have done a good job for them, and so I'm very appreciative of that.
I love that you also stay excited about like just the new client, the new job. That I think is a true sign that you really love what you're doing. Because
Yes.
if you're jumping on the back and down, like it's got to be something there.
Yeah, aren't I so cool?
That's the new theme of the podcast. I'm wondering too, because you've been doing this for such a long time that, and anybody I think that's in a creative space, and I've learned this from talking to so many people that, like you're always being creative, and like your friend, she has her antenna up all the time, looking for that inspiration. So, but because you're in a role like that, people look to you for creativity, I think. Like, how do you stay inspired and fresh with that? Do you ever find like that's a problem, or what do you use to stay kind of inspired in that, to stay excited for people?
Well, that's a good question. I think appreciation and feeling grateful for doing work that I like to do. And I think it goes back to that cubicle and just knowing that this job might be a little hard today, but I can do something else tomorrow, or maybe the differentness of every day is what I also appreciate. Like that sometimes I work crazy hours in a week, but then, earlier this year I got to go to Baja and I went whale watching.
Wow.
I got to touch a whale like in the middle of the week, like
I love that part of it, in the middle of the week, because it's not so special on Saturdays. but
well, it's just I have a flexible schedule. So
Yeah.
I worked like crazy the week before and I had to work like crazy the week after, but I got to take a week off and then take this really wild, trip down to Baja.
Wow.
So,
And when you say even like crazy too, like, are you mean like crazy hours, like you're working like it's 60, 70, 80 hours a week, or you're up till 4 a.m. or something like crazy like that?
it all depends. I am not someone that stays up very late at night working.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I get up fairly early in the morning, so I'm okay on that side. But when it gets to 8 o'clock, I'm like
You're
toast. I
done.
don't. Yeah, like I'm not the late night owl. Yeah, it depends. Like this last week, I shot 4 days for one client, and then I worked on Sunday, like a full day.
Yeah.
So then it just depends. And then like today, I had something yesterday. I'm shooting on Wednesday, and I'm shooting on Friday. So it's not as busy.
Yeah. Well, I asked that too, because I think just, I was just thinking like reality, like what does crazy mean for some people? Because I think the reality, I've been talking to a friend about this, like when you start something new, like I've been starting this podcast and, this organization that goes along with it. And luckily, what I've been hearing is like it all looks like it's very smooth from the outside. Like, oh, the podcasts show up every week and blah blah blah. And I'm like, actually, it's a train wreck behind the scenes. Sometimes you just don't know it because I'm up till 4 a.m. working on something that was like a total disaster, right? But like, and that's okay. Like, but the moments of like, sometimes I'm really crazy, and then other moments like. It's actually really smooth and it's like I have flexibility with stuff. And so when I was talking to this friend, it was about this, what is really crazy or working really hard even mean? And that's why I asked it was like, what's some of the definition? Because I think when I started some stuff and I was like, oh, I know I'm going to work hard. I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
I was like, oh, hard.
Yes.
I was like, it's going to be tough. I didn't know till 4 a.m. tough. I didn't get that part.
Right.
You know.
That's crazy. Good luck with that.
Right. And I'm not a night owl either. But, I don't do that often. I want to make it sound like, woe is me. It's none of that. It's that I think it's helpful as we talk about like, oh, you know what? You can be extreme in some areas. An extreme can be whatever for you. But you also get to touch whales on Wednesdays. Like that's,
Yes.
Yes. I love that you do that. That's so much fun. I feel like I need to do more of that.
It was definitely on my list, like I've been trying to keep a list. I guess that kind of brings back to like pushing forward too, like because you don't get anywhere unless you have a map of where you want to go. So I had actually the friend that I went with, his sister had been in Baja surfing and a whale had come up to her while she was surfing. And he told me this story probably 20 years ago or something. And I have thought about that and had wanted to go down there. And then my friend had just recently retired. He has a 4-wheel drive motorhome and he's like, let's go. Like, okay, let's go. And we went out in this teeny tiny boat and this whale came up to us and they said, yeah, you can pet him. So I have my camera in one hand and you can see my hand in the other hand and the picture petting the whale.
Is that picture did you put that online somewhere?
No, I need to though.
Oh my gosh, you do. Because I would love also to link to that from this podcast because I think that's so, and I just want to see it because that sounds so cool.
Yes. And then just simple things like my sister had a baby and like being able to go to her 1-year birthday party or her 2-year birthday party or, just to take the time. Mm-hmm. Or I try in the beginning of the year to make kind of like things that I want to look forward to or things that I want to do. And like one of them was like, go meet my sister's baby. Like that's pretty cool, just to have something neat that's happening.
So that's kind of like a little bit of the balance, the driver of I get to do this really great work, but I also get to, what I'm doing, I don't sit in a cube and not that cubes are bad, it's just not right for you, right? Like,
yeah, not right for me.
I totally, I've just lost like half my audience. And, right? Which I think, if anybody's ever worked it, they get it. I've done it. And, I love that, it just helps you say like, hey, I get to do these other cool things. And when I make a map for it, like, because I thought when you said you were like the map or the direction where you're going to go, I kind of thought you were going to like, oh, here are the projects I'm going to work on. Or who I want to be. But you didn't go there. You were like, oh, no, these are the cool things I want to do in my life. And this is what allows me to do it.
But I actually do have cool things I want to do too. Like this didn't happen last year, but I had a list and on my list, I wanted to do a cookbook and I did a cookbook. And then I had another one on my list. Like I wanted to do a paid, and this sounds horrible, but to shoot children.
Yeah, maybe we should change the word shoot.
to have children in like a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And I actually did that too, which is neat because I had put it down at the beginning of the year and the job didn't happen until kind of the end of the year. And then as I was reviewing what happened throughout the year, I was like, wow, look at all this stuff that actually happened. And I don't know if it's, you put it down and then kind of forget about it, or is it subconscious that you're leaning in that direction for it to happen?
Yeah.
Or I'm not really sure how that works, but it's very exciting when it does work.
And do you reflect back on that? Do you like look back at your accomplishments or the things that you did and went, oh my gosh, look at what I like? Is that part of this process as well? Like, even if it's like not, conscious that you're doing that?
Definitely. Because I feel life is going by so fast, or time is going by so fast, that I need to kind of keep better track of things, because I just feels like I'm always running. Like I'm always running, or I'm catching up, or then I'm running again. And there needs to be more than that, I feel.
No, I agree because we can probably get lost in the motion.
Right. And then you
Yeah.
don't know, or you don't remember, like, because things are happening so fast that you don't even remember what they were, or what you did. Like, oh yeah, I have to take pictures on my phone, and then I'll go through my phone and like, oh yeah, that, oh, or you think you're not doing anything, like, oh, nothing's going on, and then you look at your phone, you're like, oh, boop boop boop, life in.
Look, life happened. Who knew?
Yeah, look, wait, what am I talking about?
I think it's also probably a really great way to like remember like if things aren't going well or you're not having a great moment or maybe business is slow or whatever the case is. I think about this with failures because that's been like a recent thing for me, like just listening to people talk about, in the moment of the failure, like how do you get past that? And
Right.
like maybe there are mechanisms like that to remember like, oh wait, yeah, look at all these cool things I did do in it. Like you gotta fail. We hear that probably a lot, like, live the fail or whatever.
No, thank you.
There's the truth I see in some of that, like, well, yeah, you are going to fail and that's just part of the learning or whatever. And I heard this the other day too. It's about like how you act in the moment of it or how you pick yourself back up. And the thing, I just talked to a friend last night for dinner and we were like, yeah, but nobody ever talks about how hard it is in the moment of the failure. Like, it depends, some failures are small or whatever. But it was if you have these small mechanisms, like looking at your phone, all the cool stuff that you've been doing, or the calendar or whatever, like that kind of reminds you that it's okay that you failed over here because you did this over here. And there's so much other good stuff. Like, don't get deflated. Like, keep going.
Right. And yeah, believe that it's going to come. Because it is, I do get nervous when you see that your calendar doesn't have as much as you think it should have. And like, oh, and I'm never going to work again. Like,
But that's really honest, probably.
but it comes, it does come. And then you get a phone call or, oh, do you think you might be interested in this? And you're like, yes.
Yes, I have time.
Yes, I would love to. And then the best way to get work, I think, is to plan a trip. Because then everybody wants something. And then you can move, and then you have to squish everybody. And then, I don't know, for some reason, it always happens.
Really?
As soon as you plan something, then your phone starts ringing.
Sounds like it's feast or famine. Like it
Right.
all happens at one time.
Yes.
That's so interesting. Well, this is kind of part of the show that there's a couple questions I've been asking folks. I just love kind of like the consistency of it. And also, I just think it's like really tangible advice. So I'd love to ask you a couple of these.
Okay.
So if you were like, what is something you wish you could tell your younger self about following your passion? Especially thinking about like the whole story you just told us, like you were in this cube, all these sorts of things, and then, debated about going to school. So if you could go back and tell your younger self something about following your passion or doing something, what would it be?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I think so much of what your path is helps you in your future. Like I have 3 younger sisters, so that helped me get babysitting jobs. I used to take them to the park, and then other mothers would see me with them, and so then I would get work. So I kind of was an entrepreneur early. So then that kind of helped me. Like I think I had my first job in 6th grade. I walked this kid to school, so that was great. And then working in the restaurants helps with the food. And I don't know, what would I tell my younger? It's going to be okay, I guess. But I still think I need to tell myself that right now, like it's going to be okay. I don't know. I know one of the questions you asked too was like, how do you define success, or how do you? I'm not sure what your question was. Something about success, and I feel like I'm still figuring out what that looks like, and I don't know what that looks like, and I want to maybe get a little bit of a clearer picture, so I know if I get there or when I get there, or maybe I'm there. Because I'm always striving for more, I guess.
I love that latter part where you just said too, like, well, maybe I'm already there. I think that when you're doing things on your own, especially, or like, what is the measure of success?
Exactly.
Because we hear things like in the media or what we see on LinkedIn or what others are doing, and I think it's so easy for us to look at others and say, well, that's what success looks like.
Right.
Or even, is that success for me? Because my path is different.
Right.
So I don't know. I start to think about like, success is like, here's my outside opinion about you. I think you're super successful. You're doing what you love. You're having a lot of fun doing it. You get to do those things in life that are important to you. So to me, like, that's success, but everybody has a different value. Maybe success is having a certain kind of lifestyle. They don't want to go pet the whale. They want to have this house somewhere. Or so, I think those are like these personal values, but you have to understand a little bit of what you love. Listen to me. I sound like Oprah right now.
Yes, I love it.
I make it up. But, I don't know. It's just, you got to find out like what your thing is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, this just made me think about something I saw you post the other day before I asked this other question. But I just saw that you posted, I think it was a reshare on Instagram. It was like one of those kind of inspirational phrases. And
yeah.
Dream big, work hard, stay focused, and surround yourself with good people, which I kind of love all that.
Right.
And when I read that too, I one of the questions I was thinking too, because it's so individual, is like, what does dream big mean to you? I was curious about that.
That has been one of my, phrases for a while. And I think that you need to set it high and set it wide, like, because you don't know, like I, as my younger self, I would never have thought that I would be living, near downtown Los Angeles and have a huge photo studio and, like living this life that I've lived and been able to visit other countries and other states and travel and, have great friends and get to meet or work with someone who worked with Oprah, like.
I like that she's our catchphrase now.
Yes.
But that's true. Well, when you
don't get to her somehow,
right? Somehow, like she'll show up at our door or something, because that's what she does.
Oh, that would be amazing. I might fall over.
Well, when you dream big too, does that mean like like you really do vision it kind of out there? I want to, like, my big vision might be like I'm going to have a crazy big studio, or is it really like you're just open to things?
I think open to things, for sure. And then, even like, because it comes down to money, we all need money.
Yes.
And, putting some pretty high numbers on yourself. And then, like last year was a really good year for me. And I put a high number, and then it's kind of like, oh, do you want to, goof off, or do you want to do this? And then you kind of like, oh, well, let's do this because this helps you get to that.
Yeah, right.
So if you didn't have the map or the idea of what it was, then maybe you wouldn't know that that's where you wanted to go.
Yeah, that's smart, and that's true. Yeah, have a bit of a plan, but also be really open to like the big things.
Yeah, and then I almost made it where I wanted to go, and I was like almost. I felt a tiny bit disappointed that I didn't make it, but I did really well. So you can't be, you have to still, be appreciative of the effort that.
I agree, because if you didn't do any of that, you wouldn't be even as far as you were where your result was.
Exactly.
So it's not just like, well, is the end goal really the end goal, or is it even like that journey to that end goal?
Right.
So deep.
The journey.
Right? Hence my show.
The journey.
Well, one of the other questions I love to ask, and especially for folks that are just really loving what they do and, kind of living their journey every day, is what is like one piece of advice you would tell someone who's either starting in a new career, or somebody who's, maybe thinking about following a passion?
You ask the tough questions.
Well, I think these questions are so, like, they're kind of fun because the folks I'm talking to, they're doing it. You guys are doing this. And,
Right.
I think you've had some, even though we haven't really covered like all, like, I'm sure there are pitfalls and failures and things that you've gone through as well. And because, you had the aha moment of like, I'm going to go back to school and do the thing I really love. I think that folks like you have that, maybe you haven't shared it yet, like, or said it to others or said it out loud, but I think you do have these probably nuggets of wisdom that you could say, yeah, if you're thinking about starting this, or you're struggling to even know what you want to do, you should probably go try this or do something else.
Right. One thing I think that's helpful for me is I try to be, a kind person and someone that's, nice to be around, because people want to be around nice people,
Yeah.
like, and I try to be happy. I put a smile on my face, and I got these words. I was photographing this corporate event, and their words, and I love these words that they use. So reliability, teamwork, integrity, and dependability, which is kind of like reliability, but all those things, like I want to strive for that. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I want you to know that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the flaky artist. Not that artists are flaky, but like the
Yeah.
unreliable person that's going to show up late or show up unorganized or not prepared or any of those things. I want to show up and get the job done, and everyone is happy, and sales increase because of the project that we did. And I want to be a part of the team. And that's one other thing that I really like with what I do, is I get to be a part of a team of a lot of different people. Like I'll show up and everyone says Vanessa, and I'm so happy that they are happy that I'm there, and they get to work. We get to work together, and we get to do some really neat things. And then the next day, then I'm a part of a different team, and we get to do things. But it's nice, and I get invited to things, and like they consider me a part of their team, which I really like. And I'm on my own. I don't have to show up there every day. I just get to show up for the fun things, or fun in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wonder if that's really around, because I love that you're like, be nice, because it's true. Like, it's not that hard, and it's so great when people do it. It
Yes.
almost sounds like when you even talked about that in those words, and when you are trying to be those things, like, I think everybody could do that. But what I heard out of that too is it opens you up to opportunity. When you are nice, and it's not just a smile, but it's being so connected and positive about things. It's that energy like we were talking about earlier. It's the, maybe you'll talk to the person you didn't talk to, and that could lead into another opportunity. And, that, and also people want to work with you. So if somebody's starting a career, be yourself, be nice, be all these things.
And then sometimes I have to convince myself that it's going to be okay. Like because sometimes I get nervous to go on a shoot or something, and then I just start the mantra: "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay," or "It's going to be awesome." Like even more so than okay, it's going to be really great. I recently got to photograph a designer here in Los Angeles, and he was an art center alum, and he started his business they have a thing called the senior show, where they display all their work, and then they have a couple nights of people coming. Like one night is industry night, so people like alumni and people in the industry come and then look at the new students' work. And he got his start from this industry night. And when I was at Art Center, we started the industry night. So I was so excited to meet this guy who got his start from something that we had worked on as a student when we were at Art Center. So that was fun. But I was a little nervous to meet him because he's this really cool guy and, super hip and whatever. But I was telling myself it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then I got there and I kind of shared my enthusiasm for how excited I was that he was doing so well. And that, just kind of a little bit of the story. And he was like, oh yeah, as soon as you said Art Center, I knew it was going to be fine, which was great. And so then he was really enthusiastic about it. And we ended up having a great time and a fun shoot. And so.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think that's so true. Like, we can sometimes get really worked up, right? Or nervous about something, or be unsure, and you just, I don't know, especially if you're doing stuff on your own too, or it's a new space, it's going to be okay, and tell yourself.
Yes, it's going to be okay.
I love that. It's so true. I do it all the time. I have to psych myself up.
Yes.
Nobody knows that because I'm total Mr. Extrovert, but yeah, I have to fake it sometimes. Like you just do. You just work yourself into it. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's so great. This has been so much fun.
Oh, good. Thank you for thinking I'm awesome. I appreciate it.
Of course. I thought I thought you've been awesome for years. Oh my gosh. Since we were doing photo shoots for me back in the day at corporate and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, she totally gets me. Like, so much fun. This is, I just think you're having such a great time, and it's so fun to follow you along. One of the last things I'd love to end with is if people want to follow along with you online, where should they check out your work and follow along?
I have my website is great. And then I love Instagram. I'm a bit more of a follower on Instagram than posting, but I do post my adventures on there.
Great. Well, we'll definitely link to it on our website into the podcast. So we'll link to both of those places so they can follow along. Yeah, I think you have some great photos too. And I am going to follow up and make sure you put that whale picture online.
Okay.
Because I would love to include that in our story here just so people could see kind of what we referenced.
Yes. That's one thing I'm horrible with. I like to take pictures, but I do not like to process.
That's the minutia. I get that. I have a ton of stuff on my phone that I'm like, maybe one day I'll get that up, and maybe one day I won't.
I know. Or people like for family events, they're like, "Can you take pictures?" I'm like, "Yes, but you will never see them." And they think I'm joking, and I'm like, "No."
I started doing a little cheat thing, which is horrible because I sometimes take many versions of the same photo, but I turned on like the Flickr auto upload. And especially for my phone, so they just automatically go to Flickr, and my family all has access to those accounts. Oh, and so I'm like, that way I don't have to do it. So
perfect.
Gotta find ways.
Look into that.
Oh my gosh! Well, thank you again. This is so much fun.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Sure, absolutely. And I know we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Now over to you. Any thoughts or questions you'd like to share? Seriously, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me or the guest? We'll answer them and even get the guest to help us. So send us a message, use our Facebook page and email us there, or post a comment or question on the page, or tweet us at accidentalinfo using hashtag LivingYourJourney. You can find out more about all the guests, links to their sites and social channels, and even bonus content all at accidentalinformation.com. Now, a couple favors. Go subscribe to the show and you'll be the first to get the download before everyone else. Also, take just a couple moments and head over to the show in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a quick review. Quick, easy, and I would love it. This totally supports us and it helps me bring in interesting guests each week and keeps the show going. Also, I love to read them and see what you guys are really thinking. Thanks for joining the conversation, and remember, Living Your Journey is available every Tuesday. Until next week.